You always make drama out of nothing. They said it like a joke. But when you've been silenced long enough, even breathing feels like rebellion. Stick around, because this is the story of what happens when the invisible girl owns the ground they stand on. The glow from my laptop was the only light in the apartment. Outside, Brooklyn's skyline flickered faintly against the August haze. My tea had gone cold an hour ago, but I hadn't noticed. My thumb hovered over the screen, frozen. The Instagram story was grainy, just a shaky video of folding chairs being set up, someone yelling over wind, kids running past a stack of coolers. But the caption was sharp enough to slice skin. Sloan Family Beach Reunion 2023. Can't wait. I stared at the name on the post. Jamie, my cousin. She tagged nearly everyone except me. I closed the app and opened messages, scrolled through the family group chat. Gone. Just gone. I wasn't there anymore. No last text from me, no announcement, no, we've decided to remove her. One moment I had access, the next I didn't. Like I never existed. It was almost surgical. Clean. Unspoken. Like they'd practiced it before. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking under my spine, and let the coldness inside catch up to the cold outside. This wasn't new. It was just the cleanest cut yet. Labor Day weekend, 3 years ago, came rushing back like a salt slap to the face. I'd been there, at the same reunion. Sat at the edge of a plastic folding table while Mom toasted Ethan's brilliance. "He's launching a crypto fund," she'd said, beaming like she owned part of it. A visionary, taking risks. And I wasn't even in the family photo. I had taken it. Back then, I told myself it didn't matter, that I was building something bigger, that silence was better than scraping for validation. But tonight, the silence was sharper than any insult. It didn't just hum in the background, it screamed. My phone buzzed. "Marcos, you still want listings in North Carolina?" I found something near Outer Banks. Clean title, 2 parcels. One's got beach access. I blinked. My thumb hovered over the thumbnail. There it was. That stretch of coast. That damn stretch of coast. I recognized the weather-beaten lifeguard stand, the curl of dunes in the distance, even the tiny wooden shack where Ethan had made me cry at 14, calling me beach rat, in front of his friends. That beach was our tradition, our family myth. That was where they toasted themselves and ignored me. That was where they erased me, and then had the nerve to return like nothing ever happened. I opened the image in full screen. The memory was almost tactile. Gritty sand under my heels, the sting of words I never deserved. I could see them now. The chairs, the fire pit, Savannah's Instagram boomerangs. They'd go back this year, just like every other. Laughing, tanning, posing, never realizing the foundation under them was already shifting. I stared at the screen for a long time, pulse evening out. I didn't feel angry. Not really. Anger was immediate, impulsive. This was different. This was strategy, rising like a tide. I clicked on Marcos's contact. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, what's up? How fast can we acquire land near the Outer Banks?" There was a pause on the other end, then a low, interested chuckle. "Depends. How invisible do you want to be?" I looked out at the glittering city, the lights reflecting off windows like tiny, complicit witnesses. Then I whispered, calm and sure, like I never existed. People think revenge starts with anger. Mine starts with a deed, and a timestamp. The drone's live footage glowed on the conference screen, a silent ripple of ocean curling over sand. Even with the resolution downscaled for bandwidth, I could still make out the edge of the old driftwood log where Ethan used to balance beers like trophies. The Outer Banks hadn't changed much, but I had. Marcos leaned back in his chair, the soft hum of jazz from the speakers cushioning the silence. His office at Proppy's looked like something out of a noir film. Green desk lamp, brushed brass finishes, a bonsai tree clinging to life near the window. He looked up from the legal packet he'd been assembling. The Shell LLC is ready to file. You want it under C like we discussed? Sloan Environmental Access, I confirmed. Nothing traceable. Cleanest hands win, he said, clicking the mouse. Parcel B overlaps with what the county still thinks is public access, but it's been lapsed for over a decade. You'll have beachfront dune access and 50 feet past the tree line, enough to catch whatever they're planning to pitch. I nodded, my attention locked on the scrolling image of the beach as the drone banked left. In the corner of the screen, a heat signature pulsed faintly. Construction crews working on a rental 2 houses over. I already knew the Sloan family would pick the same location they always did. Jamie's posts were a goldmine of repeat behaviors. They were creatures of habit. That made them predictable. Marcos slid a form toward me. Deed transfer. Notarized. Dated today. I signed. There was no satisfaction in the gesture, just completion. He watched me. You sure you don't want to stop here? Owning the land alone? No, I said. They have to walk into it, without knowing. He nodded slowly. Then next step, eyes. The paperwork for the surveillance installation was already in motion, through a public utility request, not a private contractor. The camera would face the beach but stay within the angle restrictions. No audio, no interior view, and completely compliant with state privacy laws. It would record movement, timestamp activity, and log every incursion across my property line. Not because I planned to sue, but because I needed proof they would never believe existed. My phone buzzed. Lucille. They'll probably pitch the tents the same way. I found last year's layout. You'll want to pay attention to the fire pit line. No greeting, no sign-off. Just data. I smiled faintly. Back in the office, Marcos connected the new property to my Prop E's admin panel. You'll get real-time access through here, he said. Heat maps, boundary flags, time-stamped motion zones. Want to test it? I tapped into the map. The beach expanded in pixelated gray and amber. Then the words blinked up. Live feed enabled. And a second later, property owner, confirmed. I exhaled. Marcos looked up at me from the other end of the desk. Want to place a boundary sign? I didn't hesitate. I'd rather they walk right through it. They laughed by the fire pit. They had no idea they were trespassing across my spine. The smoke curled upward, soft as thread, the smell of scorched cedar drifting faintly toward my balcony. From 2 properties down, I could see the flickering glow of the Sloan family's bonfire. Tents lined the sand like parade flags. String lights, tiki torches, even a makeshift banner. Sloan strong, since 1978. A woman in a flowy dress flitted past the camera's frame, arms full of marshmallows and solo cups. I didn't recognize her. Probably another in-law or someone trying to marry in. The Sloan Beach reunion wasn't just a family event. It was theater, an audition, an alibi for their own sense of permanence. I tapped the camera feed again, enlarging the frame. The stake for the fire pit was 2 feet inside my boundary line. Ethan had shoved it in confidently, like he owned not just the sand, but the tide itself. I'd marked the coordinates days ago. Every shovel mark, every cooler drop, every beach chair was now part of a digital trail. The live stream on Jamie's Instagram bounced as she ran, yelling, "S'mores in 5, don't let Ethan eat all the chocolate." I smiled. The irony was thick enough to burn. They were tagging the location, of course. Sloan Beach, 2023, family first, legacy strong, every tag, every face, every timestamp. Gift-wrapped evidence. I adjusted the contrast on the feed, leaning into the soft click of the camera zooming in. 2 kids ran past the camera pole, laughing. Kendra stood by the drink table, fixing her hair in her phone screen, turning just enough to catch the best light. She looked proud, polished, untouchable. She didn't notice me. None of them did, except Lucille. She stood a few feet apart from the group, sipping from a stainless tumbler. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't posing, just scanning. When her eyes swept toward my building, I didn't move. Our eyes locked. She didn't flinch, didn't signal, just tilted her chin by a fraction. Barely a nod, but enough. Acknowledgement. Witness. I sat back. Savannah's voice rang out over the cheap Bluetooth speaker system. Okay, everyone, glasses up. A dozen arms lifted wine and beer into the air, silhouetted by the fire. She grinned. To the Sloan legacy, no matter where we plant our flag. The cheer rose. The flames snapped. For a moment, it was almost cinematic. I took a screenshot. Then another, and another. The geotag blinked in the corner. Outer Banks, North Carolina. 35 degrees, 45 minutes, 42 seconds north. 75 degrees, 31 minutes, 55 seconds west. I dragged the files into the folder labeled Violation Evidence, primary, and opened Marcos's secure server. The cease and desist had been drafted days ago. I'd left the delivery time blank. Now I typed it in. September 3rd, 6:45 a.m. I hovered over the send button, the cursor pulsing like a heartbeat. One click. The screen refreshed. Upload complete. My phone buzzed. Marcos. It's done. Sunrise delivery. They'll wake up to it. They thought they were safe under the sun. But justice doesn't need shadows to work. The waves lapped gently at the shore as the breakfast table glittered with mimosas and smugness. Folded chairs circled a white linen-draped table, now loaded with fruit bowls, croissants, and flaky, uneven bagels someone had clearly picked up from town that morning. Ethan lounged with his sunglasses on despite the cloudy sky, a sweatshirt hood over his bedhead. Savannah sat cross-legged next to him, scrolling aimlessly with one manicured finger. Kendra adjusted her wide-brimmed hat and posed just slightly every time someone raised a phone. Lucille sat apart, sipping black coffee. As usual, unnoticed. The morning still carried a film of self-congratulation from the night before. Reunion games, the fire pit toast, laughter stretching far too late. They were relaxed, radiant, invincible. They didn't know the hourglass had flipped. Two figures approached from the dunes. The courier's beige uniform didn't fit the beach aesthetic. He carried a flat leather folder in one hand and a small stack of white envelopes in the other. His steps were slow, deliberate, as if he didn't want to interrupt a performance that was about to implode anyway. Package for Sloan family, he said evenly. Kendra blinked. That's us. He handed over the folder. Signature, please. She scribbled without reading. The envelopes were distributed like party favors, one each to Kendra, Ethan, and Savannah. Jamie reached for one and was politely ignored. What is this? Savannah asked, already tearing hers open. Kendra smiled too wide. Probably some mistake. Delivery mix-up. Ethan didn't open his. Looks like court crap. Marcos probably sued someone again. Savannah's brow furrowed. Her lips moved as she read silently. Then she read again. This is real. Ethan smirked. What? Another HOA warning? Savannah's voice sharpened. Cease and desist for unauthorized private use of land owned by C LLC. The breeze picked up, rustling paper and the hem of tablecloths. Who? Kendra asked, glancing at the envelope like it might dissolve in her hand. What the hell is SEA? Savannah's phone was already out. She typed, scrolled, froze. It's real, she murmured. CLLC owns the parcel this tent is sitting on. Kendra turned pale. That can't be right. We've used this beach for years. It's not public, Savannah whispered. Not anymore. Ethan took the envelope, finally reading. Someone bought it? That's ridiculous. Who the hell would... Lucille stood. They all looked up, startled. She hadn't said a word in days. Without speaking, she walked into the rental house. The silence she left behind felt like a held breath. She returned 2 minutes later, holding an iPad. She placed it gently in the center of the table and hit play. Aubrey's face filled the screen. She stood at a podium, flanked by two executives and a backdrop of navy blue and slate gray. The banner read, Prop Ease Summit, Innovators in Environmental Access. The speaker's voice echoed through the tiny tablet speakers. And finally, our CEO, Aubrey Sloan, whose latest LLC acquisition, a CA, has pioneered coastal equity frameworks for. Lucille paused the video. No one moved. She didn't disappear, Lucille said softly. You deleted her. The waves no longer sounded gentle. Kendra's hand trembled slightly as she placed her mimosa back on the table. Her voice came out thin. She owns the land. Savannah didn't look up from her phone. She owns us right now. They finally made space for my voice. By accident. The sky had turned a heavy gray, the last of the sun slipping beneath the water like a coin dropped into a well. Paper lanterns swayed above the fire pit, tethered to bamboo poles, dim halos circling in the rising wind. The final night of the reunion was always meant to be ceremonial, a closing act of curated nostalgia. Tonight was no different. Or so they thought. Gift bags sat at every seat, tied with twine and navy ribbon. Ethan joked that Savannah had gone Pinterest crazy, but she just smiled and handed them out like party favors. Open them after the slideshow, she said cheerfully. Someone fiddled with the projector while the rest of the family settled onto beach blankets and canvas chairs. The fire crackled, just loud enough to swallow the low tension that hadn't left since the cease and desist had arrived. Kendra poured herself another drink without comment. Ethan sulked quietly, scrolling his phone until the battery gave out. Lucille sat with perfect stillness, her eyes on the tide. The slideshow began with a burst of stock music and baby photos. Ethan in a pumpkin costume, Kendra in a pastel visor, Savannah holding sparklers. Laughter came easily, though thinner now. Then the screen stuttered, glitched, black screen, then a new image, my office, the clean lines of glass and concrete, a slow zoom on my desk. I sat behind it, wearing black. Hair pulled back, composed. The laughter faded. My voice, calm and even, carried through the speaker. Some of you haven't seen me in years. That wasn't an accident. You erased me, and then walked on to the only place I ever felt free. So I bought it. Silence. The screen cut to drone footage of the beach. Empty, beautiful, sovereign. The same space they now occupied. My voice continued, almost gentle. I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here because facts matter more than feelings. When I was accepted to MIT, no one asked. When I launched my first prototype, I paid for it by skipping meals. When I made my first million, no one texted. And when you removed me from your group chat, quietly, without question, I didn't get mad. I made a choice. A hush fell so deep that the waves felt louder. You've always said I was cold, private, difficult. Maybe I am. But I learned to speak code when words failed. I built something no one could take from me, including this land. The drone footage shifted to the family tents, their chairs, their fire. I stared into the camera. This land isn't revenge, it's recovery. For me, and for the girl you never saw. The screen froze. My face lingered for a beat too long, then faded to black. Ethan stood up, grabbed a plastic tumbler, and hurled it into the fire. Sparks shot upward. Kendra opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. Her voice cracked. That's enough. Lucille turned to her. You always said she wasn't strong enough, she said quietly. Turns out she didn't need to be strong, just smarter. No one replied. The only sound was the wind picking up, pulling hard at the edges of the tents. Somewhere out over the water, thunder rolled. The family sits in stunned silence. Outside, the wind picks up. A storm is rolling in. They left the sand marked, but I kept the silence clean. The beach was quiet again. No music, no toasts, no tangled laughter clawing over each other to be heard. Just the steady breath of the ocean, pulling in, letting go. I walked barefoot across the damp shoreline, feeling the press of each shell shard and cigarette butt under my heel. The fire pit was still there, half collapsed, blackened, abandoned. Paper cups tumbled in the breeze. A broken wine glass sparkled in the sun like it might still be worth something. I didn't rush. There was no one left to impress, only a space that finally belonged to me. The trash bag in my hand rustled as I bent to gather the pieces. Wrappers, napkins, a plastic fork with dried hummus crusted on the tines. It wasn't the litter that bothered me. It was the disregard. The assumption that someone else would deal with the mess, like always. I spotted a folded photo on the sand, the edges soft with moisture. I picked it up gently. It was a group shot, taken during the fire pit toast, probably by Jamie or one of the kids. The family stood in a loose arc, arms lifted high, mouths open in cheer. Ethan, front and center. Kendra to his left, her hat angled perfectly. Savannah holding Lucille's shoulder. I wasn't in it. I stared at it for a few seconds. Not angry, not sad, just certain. I crumbled it slowly, the paper crackling between my fingers, and tucked it into the recycling sack. At the edge of the dune, I stood still, watching the waves blur the horizon into silver haze. The wind lifted my hair off my shoulders. I closed my eyes and let the silence do what it does best. Heal in ways noise never could. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Marcos, I answered without looking. No lawsuit, he said. No public statement either, but you're trending on 2 real estate blogs. Anonymous CEO uses Shell Corp to reclaim ancestral shoreline. I smiled. Let the waves talk. A pause. Then quieter. They'll never forget this, you know. I don't need them to, I said. I just needed to stop forgetting myself. Another buzz lit my screen. Lucille. I saw everything. I hope you finally feel seen. I typed back one word. Yes. Then I walked farther down the beach, the sun rising behind me. When I reached the softest patch of sand near the old dune ridge, I crouched and ran my finger through it, slow and steady. I wrote, "This land remembers me, even if you don't." The wind blurred the edges as soon as I stood. Behind me, small footsteps padded across the sand. A child's voice rang out, high and breathless. Aubrey, I turned. A little girl with tangled curls was chasing a red kite, her parents trailing behind. They called again. Aubrey, wait. She stopped near where I stood, clutching the kite string. Her wide eyes met mine for a second, open and unafraid. I smiled. Then I turned away and walked on. No regrets. The sky had turned lilac by the time I returned to the house. Not the one they'd rented, the one I owned. Quiet, clean, untouched. I left the sand at the door. The last grains clung to my ankles like a whisper that hadn't yet decided whether to stay or go. In the kitchen, the coffee maker blinked 6:48 p.m. I didn't need more caffeine, but I liked the ritual. The familiar hiss, the weight of the mug in my hands, the warmth pooling in my fingers. When it finished brewing, I didn't drink. I just held it. The tablet on the counter lit up. New voicemail. From an unknown number. I stared at it for a long time. My thumb hovered over the play icon, not because I was afraid of the message, but because I already knew who it was from. I tapped. There was a pause. Then the voice came through. Aubrey, it's me, your father. I didn't move. I don't know if you'll even hear this. Maybe you've blocked us all. Maybe you should have. But someone gave me this number. Probably Lucille. She always knew more than she let on. He chuckled, but it wasn't real. It was the kind of laugh people use when they're not sure how to be human anymore. I saw the video, he continued. Everyone did. And I guess I should say I'm sorry. For all of it. For not stopping them. For not defending you. For thinking you were just quiet when really, you were trying to survive. There was a clink in the background. Maybe a glass set down. Or a chair scraped across regret. You know, I told you once, you'd always be on the edge of this family. My breath caught. I thought I was being honest, but now I wonder if I was just cruel. Because edges cut, and you were always bleeding and we just let you. Silence again. Not awkward, just tired. I'm not calling to ask you to come back or to fix things. I don't think you should. I just wanted to say, I saw you. Finally, you were right. The voice shook. That girl, standing in a garage on a cardboard box, trying to give a speech no one asked for. I remember that. I remember choosing not to clap. A long breath. I should have clapped. Then the line ended. Just like that. I didn't cry. Instead, I set the mug down, walked to the balcony, and sat with the wind in my face. The beach stretched before me, golden and empty, the fire pit reduced to a vague circle of black sand. There was no need to respond, no anger to nurture, no score to settle. But for the first time, the apology didn't sound like an excuse. It sounded like a man who had finally looked at his own hands and realized they weren't clean. Behind me, the tablet dimmed to black. The tide came in, and this time it wasn't erasing anything. Of all the footprints left behind on that beach, only one led forward, and it belonged to the girl they tried to erase. She didn't need to shout, didn't need to confront. Truth, when delivered with clarity, speaks louder than any accusation. Injustice may hide behind family ties and legacy banners, but no inheritance of silence can outlast the voice that finally claims its name. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates long after the music stops. If you've ever been pushed to the edge only to find your strength there, like comment and subscribe, your story deserves to be heard too.